Thank you for welcoming me along today. It's nice to be here. It's nice to be here in person. I think this is the first real live event I've done in about a year and a half, so it makes a really, really pleasant change. Thanks to the SMMT for making this possible as well. And thanks for probably another first, which is usually the sort of utility energy sector is seen as a bit dull and boring, so to get to rub shoulders with the slightly sexier, cooler automotive sector is a real pleasure. And I say that partly as the owner of a Renault Twizy, which was designed to try and make me look a bit cooler. And you can read two things into that. For those of you who don't know, I think a Renault Twizy is probably the only car for sale in the UK where the doors and windows are optional. And I live in Glasgow, which either makes me an eternal optimist or a bit of a madman. I will leave you to determine which. But for the first time, I suppose, probably in history since the introduction of the internal combustion engine, the electricity sector and the transport sector and the automotive sector are going to become inextricably entwined and linked. And I think that's really just what I want to focus on and talk about today. Just how do we see that? How do we see working with you? And maybe just a few lessons learned from what we've experienced of decarbonisation and trying to get towards net zero. Our experience over the last sort of decade has given us a little bit of a unique perspective because we were the first energy company to get rid of coal and gas and go 100% renewable. And so today everything we generate is 100% renewable electricity. All of the power that we feed through to about 2 million homes comes from 40 onshore and offshore wind farms. And now also we're investing in solar and battery technology. We have about 70,000 miles of electric cable buried under the ground, which is connecting that more wind farms than any other company directly into people's homes or into businesses and industrial estates. And then on top of that, we have about 5 million retail customers where we have a multitude of touch points with them, whether it's through the sale of gas and electricity or linking them to new heat and new transport solutions as well. And it's been the biggest transformation we've ever gone through as a company, and that transformation is going to continue. And now, as an organisation, I think I can probably honestly say everything we do and every strategic decision we're making now is seen through the prism and the lens of net zero and targeting moving us towards net zero as a company and as a country. And that doesn't matter whether it's wind farms, solar plants, battery storage, smart grids, EV charge points, hydrogen electrolyzers. We're investing about £10 billion over the next 5 years, and all of that is targeted to getting towards net zero and part of this transformation. In a couple of decades' time, UK electricity demand is going to double, which is a huge leap and move forward as well. And that's mainly going to be driven by transport and heat and industry as we look to decarbonise them and bring them on the journey we've been on. And I suppose my message to the government, to you, to the public is between now and 2030, we just need to get on and electrify the hell out of everything. Because if we want to get close to being able to achieve net zero carbon by 2050, we need a massive programme of electrification to start now and roll out over the next 5 to 10 years. The power sector is already quite far down that road and down the route of decarbonisation and down what people refer to as a journey. I actually refer to it and describe it more as a revolution. This is a massive, colossal change. For us as a sector, it's turning everything inside out, upside down, back to front. And I think that's what you're going to experience as a sector as well. It just radically changes everything you do, the way you think, the decisions you make. But if we get the right targets put in place, get the right mechanisms put in place, get the right mix of regulation, competition, auctions, then what we've seen in the world of renewables is a massive wave of innovation and a massive wave of cost reduction, really driving down the cost of electricity, where an onshore wind farm now is the cheapest way of producing electricity in this country. And 5 to 10 years ago, that was completely unthinkable. The pace and the scale of change has been amazing. When I first started working in renewables and in wind farms, the turbines we were installing were 40 metres tall. Each one would power about 400 homes. Today, I'm installing turbines that are 200 metres tall, and each one powers 17,000 homes. The scale of growth and investment and innovation has been colossal, driven by the targets, driven by the mechanisms, driven by the frameworks we put in place, driven by innovation. New technologies are now coming along, like floating offshore wind. Again, if you go back 4 or 5 years, it was a little bit of a sideline and a dream. And now floating offshore wind is becoming a commercial reality, and we will see that come through the next round of offshore licenses that are giving out in Scotland, where a lot of them will be focused on floating wind technology. The lessons we've learned from all of that is about the driver of government targets, the mix of that target with a framework, bringing in competition, pushing innovation, pushing scale, and pushing us to drive down cost. And that's what's created the industry, has created a massive wave of jobs through our sector. And we're now recognised in the UK, right across Europe and the world, as being the global leader in offshore wind. And it's an industry that's supporting thousands of jobs, a huge big domestic supply chain, and it's breathing life into a lot of those communities that get referred to when people talk about levelling up. The amount of investment that's gone into seaside communities, old port communities, old industrial communities has been fantastic to see, and the impact it's having is fantastic to see. I think the parallels between what we've been going through and continue to go through with the motor sector are really, really clear and really obvious in many ways. We see transport as the next massive electrification programme. That is just what this is to us. It's just one huge, big electrification programme for us, and we intend to go after it at a real pace of knots, and probably faster than most people imagine, because we think the change will happen faster than people imagine and faster than people currently think. It's already started. There's already about 500,000 electric vehicles, as you will well know, on the roads, split between hybrids and pure EV battery cars. The percentage of new registrations is increasing all the time. There was a report out last week saying there are now twice as many EVs on the roads of Europe as there were pre-COVID. So you see that rate of change and the rate of increase coming through. There's a prediction that half of the cars on the roads by 2040 will be EV, and that's an annual compound growth rate of more than 20% for the next 20 years. The pace of change is just going to get faster and faster and faster. In the UK, being spurred on by the phasing out of petrol and diesel engines by 2030, we're preparing as an industry to look at having 30 million EVs on the road by 2040 in the UK. And that's what we're trying to target in terms of our infrastructure, our investment, and our change programme for the electrification and the growth and investment in the distribution system. It does raise a couple of big questions for us, for the UK, which is, where does all the power come from? And on the back of this, there needs to be another massive wave of investment in more renewable generation. We need to probably at least double the amount of renewable generation, if not quadruple the amount of renewable generation in the system to meet the exponential growth in demand that we're creating. And then the other big challenge is, for all these EVs, how are they going to get charged? And again, a massive programme of investment in charge points. We're probably predicting about 25 million private charge points required across the UK, probably about 3 million public charge points required across the UK. Huge challenges in my home city of Glasgow, where 75 to 80% of the population live in a tenemented building or in a flat. How do they get access to public charging? How do they get that transition to this new electric world? And how do we tackle that? And that's why we were working with Glasgow City Council to try and get Glasgow to be the first net zero city in the whole of the UK. Again, you could say that's massively overly ambitious. You could say it's a bit mad, but our view is, if we can decarbonise Glasgow, we can decarbonise any city anywhere in the world. because the challenges are so big and so huge, and that's what we need to go after, and we need to go after it with pace and with great ambition. It's only going to be possible, all of this, with a huge wave of investment in the distribution system, and to most politicians, to most of the public, that's completely invisible. All people ever talk about when they talk about EVs is charge points. Charge points is the easy bit. Installing a charge point is simple. It can be done incredibly quickly. The problem is the distribution system that lies behind it. It is not fit for purpose. It is not capable of dealing with what we need to do. And the next year is absolutely critical and crucial. And if I was to ask all of you for one piece of help, for one favour, it's about getting that voice heard loud and clear. We're about to go through a massive programme of engagement with the government and with our regulator to put in place the next 5 years of investment into the distribution system. And if in that 5 years we don't increase the investment in the distribution system by at least 30% and drive forward with the investment in the distribution system to allow us to install those charge points, it will be impossible to hit the 2030 target of electrification of transport. Absolutely impossible. That's the biggest area of focus for us as a company and us as an industry. We're also working on it in terms of public transport as well. We launched last week a series of electric double-decker buses in Edinburgh, manufactured by Alexander Dennis. I think they're one of your members of your association. And again, those kind of partnerships become crucial as we look at how we move forward, working with different parts of the sector, helping them bring their product to the market, helping create a mechanism that allows it to become a reality. But there are also many, many more ways in which our futures become interconnected. In fact, I suppose if you don't know this already, it'll be news to you, but you're all going to become part of the power sector, because that's what transport's going to be. To us, in our mind, we look at you as becoming part of our sector, because every EV that gets plugged into the system is not only going to be fueled by green energy, it's going to be a storage facility. And it's going to be there to shift power day and night, to shift power from season to season, to shift power on and off the system. In time, with all of the EVs that are going to be bought in the UK and plugged in the UK, there will be as much electricity stored in our cars as is currently produced by Sizewell Nuclear Power Station. It's a colossal storage of power, and a huge use and a huge asset to us in terms of how we operate and run the system going forward. One further reflection before I finish, I suppose, then, is how we look at moving to the next phase of the energy revolution and how we can use that to uniquely position the UK. Right now, to be blunt about it, we're a collection of very windy islands. And occasionally, even in Glasgow, the sun shines as well. But if you take that natural resource and you combine it with the fact that we've actually got quite a small land mass, we've got quite high population densities, and we've got an incredibly extensive road network, we have got an incredible platform to build a truly world-leading electric transport system. And to do it, and to then use all of that technology, all of that learning, all of that manufacturing, and all of that supply chain to send it out across the rest of the world and position the UK as a true leader in the electrification of transport. And I think that's a brilliant opportunity in terms of job creation, in terms of manufacturing and supply chain investment, in terms of training opportunities for the future. And our future can include a green and self-sufficient transport system that would end up being the envy of the world, because we could do it with true, clean, green, renewable energy. Now, I think it's probably fair to say that your sector finds it easier to capture the consumer's imagination than I do selling them gas and electricity, because selling them a car and the dream of a car is a much easier sales pitch than selling them gas and electricity. And I think that, again, becomes incredibly important to us, to our sector. It becomes incredibly important in the transition to net zero, because we need to get consumers bought in to the transition. We need to get consumers excited and want to be a part of the transition. And again, I think you play a colossal part in doing all of that. And in many ways, it would be the most visible step we ever see of this country's move towards net zero is the rollout of that electric transport system and the rollout of the EVs right across the whole of this country. The change is coming. It's going to happen. It has to happen. And I actually truly, honestly believe it will happen faster than any of you imagine and than I imagine as well. Because I think when we get consumer buy-in and consumer demand, this transition will go at a great rate of knots, and it will happen to us incredibly quickly. And like any revolution, if we're not there, ready for it, ready for the pace, ready with the investment, ready with the innovation, we'll just get brushed to one side. It required us to build partnerships, to learn a whole new language for you. You'll have the wonders of learning about megawatts, time of use tariffs, grid flexibility, smart grid systems. And we would like to do that with you. We want to work with your sector. We think it's absolutely vital for us to work together, to work in partnership, because unless we do that, we won't achieve net zero. We want to try and create, and the expression we always use, whether it's for Glasgow as a city, whether it's for Scotland, whether it's for the whole of the UK, we're trying to create a better future quicker for everyone. And it has to be about creating that future for everyone. This has to go right out to every community. It has to involve everyone. Everyone has to feel like they take part in it, and they have a part to play in it, and they have access to it. And that will only happen if we work together. So thank you and good luck.
Keith, thank you.